I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to our consensus agenda.
So I move we approve the claims for last month. We have vouchers in the amount of $437,786.65. Payrolls 5 and 6 for $419,773.55. We've got voids of $2,297.48 for a grand total expenditures of $855,262.72. Also, I'd like to include in that motion the minutes from our last meeting.
I second.
Moved by Steve, second by Wes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Patrons' comments. Do we have any patrons' comments this evening? All right, we'll go on to personnel.
All right, I'd like to recommend the approval of summer school instructional assistants, as you see noted. Ms. Sally Foley, Ms. Beth Linville, Susan Stackhouse, Jonna Snyder, and Lisa Kraft. Also, while we're talking summer school, I'd like to recommend the approval of summer school teachers Sarah Melling, Lisa Andrews, Diane Murphy, Grace Smith, Victoria Hughes, and Adam Heckman.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Kevin, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
I regretfully go on to the next piece here. So Miss Anita Haynes has felt it prudent to retire after 34 and a half years of service to Triton School Corporation. So I just want to thank her for that. We've obviously been able to share our care and love for her, and just thanking her, and we'll continue to do that tonight after the board meeting with some cheesecake. But then also we have a date set to kind of have an open house and just allow people to come and just bless her as well. So yeah, that's going to be a fun couple weeks, kind of bittersweet, but I'm happy for her, and I said maybe even a little envious of her, but in the end she has a mission that is great, and she's going to be a great blessing to her sister. So we've just loved having her and just appreciate her sweet spirit and how she greets people as they come into our school corporation. So thank you, Anita. I do recommend the approval of Anita Haynes' retirement after 34 and a half years.
We approve that, and also want to say thank you, Anita, publicly for your many years of service to Triton School Corporation. It's been well appreciated.
Pleasure. Been a pleasure.
I don't know any time that when I've come through the door that you've not been there.
Been out there for a long, long time.
Okay, really, right. Okay.
2004.
So I have Steve.
I will. Okay.
Seconded by Ken. Any other discussion?
Third.
Steve and Kevin?
Ken.
Ken.
Okay.
All in favor, regretfully. Motion passes 5-0.
All regretfully.
Yes.
Yeah,
Should put regretfully for all those 5.
Yeah.
equally regretful. Just some really good people that we're hoping to obviously eventually hire some really good people as well, but just losing some just main to retirement, which we want to celebrate on one hand. On the other hand, you think business and how are you going to continue to do that. But so my next recommendation would be the approval of Jamie McIntyre, once again, 36 years in the corporation, leading our cafeterias. So just an amazing woman, just a blessing to everybody that she comes in contact with, and I just want to thank her for her service as well. She's not here tonight to accept that, but there'll be plenty of fun in the coming weeks to thank her for all the service that she's given.
Second.
Moved by Ken, seconded by Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes regrettably 5-0.
And last but not least, when it comes to the retirement piece of things, this board meeting is a recommendation for Steve Weisert. Has driven bus for Triton School Corporation for 16 years. And when we say one of the most needy routes, we say that In all due respect, the fact is he is one of the most patient men I know. He takes the time to love and care for the kids on his route. He did have a route at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, and the end of the day while farming. So just an act of service for 16 years to our corporation. And he said, I want to go out on a good note. I want to have a good attitude, and I want to make sure I go out when I'm having a good attitude. I think is what he told Miss Laura Baker. So once again, tough day when it comes to that. We will be recommending at the next board meeting his replacement. Those interviews are taking place at this time. But thank you to Steve Weiser.
I move we accept that resignation and retirement.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. Any discussion?
Just a
All in-
big thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
All in favor? Once again, regrettably.
Great people.
People. Speaking of great people, dynamite lead in here. I'm just going to go ahead and put 3 of these in here together, substitutes. One of those is Bethany Riffle, which is my beautiful wife. A substitute in the elementary school. I recommend the approval of Kathy Engelmeyer, substitute custodian. And then Marcel Lindsay, who will be a summer custodian. Lewis Lindsay, maintenance custodian substitute. So we'll go ahead and stop with those 4 recommendations as substitute cafeteria or custodians.
I move we approve those.
Second.
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Minutes show that I recused myself on Marcel Lindsay and Lewis Lindsay.
Okay.
We good on that? Okay. So next, I'd like to recommend the approval of the spring sports coaches and volunteers. Obviously, that list was included in the board packet, and obviously those are a couple weeks in now. So just wanted to update those and make sure that those got approved.
Coaches for spring sports.
Second.
Been moved by Ken, seconded by Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
The next 2 items, Bruce, comes from Bruce Gephardt, our maintenance director. I would like to recommend the approval of Deborah Green as the high school day shift custodian, and Dalton Irwin, who actually is a student who had expressed interest in helping out if and when he could. So we're going to start with that right after school, so he can assist with some of maybe the heavier lifting for that second shift and maybe work up as we go. But he's super excited about being able to stay on campus, not having to worry about transportation, and still help his community out and get paid for it. So I recommend those two hires.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Kevin, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
And last but not least, I'd like to recommend the approval of Thomas Cody, resignation as track throwing coach.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. On to other business.
I'd like to make the recommendation for Northern Indiana Education Service Center Dietitian Consortium Service Contract. That's for $4,500. That is for Caitlin Canillop. I can never really say that correctly, but she does an awesome job of assisting our cafeterias and just making sure our menus are correct as far as our ordering, those type of things. Works closely with both Jamie and Margot when it comes to just making sure we're compliant with our food service program. So that is a continued service that did not increase. That is consistent service that we've had now for at least 4 years.
I move we approve that contract.
Second.
Been moved by Steve, seconded by Kevin. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.
I'd like to recommend the approval, or the board's permission to apply for grants. So many grants come up when it comes to Title 1, 2, 3, 4, high ability, safety grants, those type of things that come up here in June. We'd just like the permission to be able to, if it's in the best interest of our school corporation and our teachers and our kids to be able to apply for those grants.
Second.
Moved by Kevin, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
I'd like to recommend the approval of a corporation policy. Once again, there is not one specific policy that we're looking at, but a lot of administrative guidelines that supported a lot of the policies that we have approved over the last few board meetings. So this is kind of a plethora. You can see those listed there. There's several different policies that just simply are in direct correlation with our regular policies. So,
I move we approve those policies.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Wes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
and last but not least, in the other business, I recommend the approval of the paving project. You can see the total amount there is $56,379.96. This, once again, is on a rotation basis, so part one section at a time. So the next up is between the ancillary areas. Sorry. Go ahead.
This is going to be everything.
Okay.
We were on a rotation basis, but the last 2 years we really haven't done anything.
Okay.
Just
Got it.
with the whole COVID thing, and then it just wasn't high on our priority list. But we're going to go ahead and do all asphalt this time around.
Do we have a time frame for that as far as when public will not be able to
No
be on
specific
site?
time frame.
Okay.
Mr. Conley usually is pretty cooperative. He usually tries to do it during the moratorium week.
Right.
So if that fits in the schedule, I'm sure that's what
Okay.
we'll do again.
Okay. Also, it'll be on for approval, but the gym floor refinish, the company that we had actually approved kind of went out of business because they were having so much trouble getting employees. So that has been adjusted a little bit, but we'll get back with the board on those exact timeframes. I believe it's going to be the week before moratorium week and then the week of. So it's going to be kind of a 2-week split there. So that's just something else of just the.
Which gym floor? That was the
So that would be the coating of all of them.
clear coat.
The clear coat, right? So just the
The new coat, yeah.
Is that the company that we have used for years?
So it's actually the company that did the tack. We'll be dealing with a different individual that's worked really hard to kind of make amends with that. But in the end, they had submitted some hopes of getting our business, but we had kind of stuck with Cedar Creek. But we talked to Cynthia, and she's like, I'm tired. I can't find help, and that's not new for them. As when we were doing actually the trench at the time, it was just difficult to keep people showing up, and that was a horrible job for somebody to start on. But yeah, so that will be coming as well with an update. But we learned of that this week.
So, Tom, is this National Asphalt Solutions the one that's going to do the asphalt for us then?
Yes, National Asphalt. I got another quote from National Asphalt, which is the lowest quote. So same person that's done it since I've been here.
And what's with the Ranger materials information?
That was the other quote.
That was the other quote, okay.
Yeah, that was just a comparison quote.
Okay. I move we approve that.
Second.
Been moved by Steve,
Purchase.
seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All approved? All in favor? Sorry. Motion passes 5-0. All right, on to the superintendent's report.
All right, as you are well aware, we've been working since our board our board retreat in June, where we had Andrew come and talk to us a little bit about InFocus and their business and kind of their model and kind of what they're trying to accomplish. We set out to complete a strategic plan this year, and in September, I believe it was, we engaged with Megan and Jeremy Prince, Megan Dale, who is joining us tonight, and Jeremy Prince, at which times our board did some interviews, and I'm not going to go through her whole presentation, but we have Megan here tonight that's going to kind of work through the strategic planning process, things that some of you guys have been a part of, so the administrators have been part of that, along with some teachers, and just talk through that, make sure that we're all on board with kind of the findings of that, and then as she is done, I'd love to bring that to our board for approval so we can get moving on continuous improvement. So I'm gonna, her presentation tonight is going to touch on all of our core values. Those core values are listed in that strategic plan. So when we think about continuous improvement, shared leadership, social responsibility, being the school of choice in our community, accountability, it's going to keep us accountable to stay on track, high expectations, alignment, and evidence-based decision-making, which is the plan, evidence from our community and stakeholders and so on. So she is going to kind of be my report tonight, but Megan has been awesome. Jeremy as well, and they've worked really, really well together to get us to where we wanted to try to figure out what does Triton look like in 5 years, and I think we got there. There will be tweaks along the way. There will be pivots, as they've said, but I think we're on the right track. So Megan's just been a superstar. Really appreciate the time and effort she's put in, not only in Triton, but many other organizations in Plymouth and the Marshall County area. LLN is one of those, Marshall County LLN, Lifelong Learning Network, and then so many others. I know that you're on other ones like early childhood and so on, but so I just wanted to introduce Megan and just thank her for all her efforts, and she will do a great job of presenting this just like she has to our elementary on Tuesday, our high school on Thursday.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that introduction, Jeremy, and I'm so happy to see you all again and excited to be able to present the results of our process with you tonight. So this is just a quick overview of what we'll cover this evening. We'll hit the timeline, just a high-level overview of how long we've been engaged, what we've been doing to work together on this strategic plan. I'll go over both of the phases. This is pretty critical to how we approach strategic planning, to be able to cover our discovery process, as we call it, and then the design process, which is writing the strategic plan itself. And then we'll cover very briefly the results, which is the strategic plan, and leave some time for questions or comments that you may have at the end. So to cover our timeline, as Jeremy said, the board made this decision further back, but we formally got started in September, close to the beginning of the school year, with our current state review, which is our discovery phase. And by that, I mean this is the period where we were doing research, learning about the school corporation, and doing analysis to understand where are we starting from? What is Triton's current state, so that we can decide where we want to go from there? That took several months. We really spent a good bit of time on that process because it's our foundation for the workshops to design the plan. We planned for those workshops in December and then held 3 once a month from January through March, despite weather challenges. So we were very excited to get those 3 workshops complete. I'll talk about each of these one at a time, but first I just kind of want to note that throughout all of our process, what our organization tries to bring is a fresh perspective, someone from the outside of Triton School Corporation, so that we're neutral. But at the same time, we bring best practices in strategic planning and in facilitation, and we work to apply those even though we know that your organization is unique, and so we want to hit that right balance of best practices and what's different. And then finally, I think what's important and what I hope you'll see is that we really value data and using data to help make decisions. So we'll start there with the current state review. This process involved a mixture of sort of a quantitative approach and qualitative. The quantitative side was analyzing school data. So we looked at Triton's demographic performance data, we compared it to peer schools and the state. But we also spent a lot of time getting to know the school. So for us, what's really important is reviewing those key historical documents, the previous strategic plan, their board presentations. We wanted to get to know what is Triton about. And the key to that was the interviews that you mentioned, Jeremy. So coming and talking to you all was wonderful at the beginning of the process, and several key staff, so that we could understand, where are people coming from? What is the group really looking to do in the next 5 years, and where are we now? And then we followed that up with an extensive survey of students, staff, and community that I'll talk about more, and focus groups, which were really important for us to get sort of a better depth of understanding of survey results. The data analysis covered quite a broad range. We looked at more than you'll even see in the current state report. And that report is actually attached to the strategic plan. So you all will be able to see it, and the public will be able to see it on the website. So I don't want to go through all the data here, since you can review it in the future, but I will just note that we wanted to hit a mixture of what is important to look at when you're a school doing strategic planning, and what are some areas where, when we looked at the data, we saw that Triton stood out in some way. So we covered, student body population. How has that changed over time? How has the grade levels changed over time? What does the community look like in Bourbon and the surrounding areas, Etna Green, Tippecanoe? We wanted to know where the students were living and where they were coming from when they come to school. We looked at student-teacher ratio, staff performance, as well as student performance on tests, and then some of those indicators towards the end of students' experience with Triton. What's the graduation rate, college enrollment? And finally, a few indicators of how are students doing in terms of their engagement or doing outside of just their academic performance. Things like attendance, behavior, and free and reduced meals. I just did want to show a couple of examples of the types of data you'll see in the current state report. Some of it we pulled from other sources. So this is one of those that we pulled. This is a dashboard that's available publicly from American Community Survey data. I think this was meaningful in the workshop, so particularly wanted to pull it up now just to put Triton's planning in context of what is the community like. We highlighted, some strengths and also some potential challenges for the community, like a percentage of households that don't have access to broadband internet. So outside of Triton's control, but definitely affecting the students and staff when they come to school. This is the type of data analysis that we put together and highlighted in the report. So obviously we wanted to show some of the key test scores. This is I Learn Math, and so in this example we were kind of just wanting to be able to show and spark conversation of Triton is close to the state average, kind of in the middle of where the other schools are. What does this mean for where we want to be? And we use this data to get conversation going in the workshops. On the qualitative side, the survey was critical, and I really want to focus on that here because there were excellent response rates. This is very high. We would have been happy with even a lower response rate in terms of feeling confident that the data was representative of what the community thought. But with these response rates, we felt great about the data that we were looking at. So huge participation, which says something unto itself, and the focus groups had great attendance as well. A few key survey results that are worth pointing out because they were so informative, I think, to the strategic planning process. Satisfaction was very high, so this is a great thing. We ask a general satisfaction question for the community and for the staff, just how satisfied are you with the school? And 82 to 85% is what we got back from those groups, which is great. We had more disaggregated satisfaction questions too for the students as well as the other groups, like how satisfied are you with your learning or with the quality of your teacher or with the safety? And those were all quite high as well. So this is a great place to be starting a strategic planning process from. We also saw that the community and parents especially were very satisfied with communication from the school. And more of a kind of a mixed or an interesting result, we asked students what they participated in. So how many of you participated in at least one activity or extracurricular? 72% said they participated in at least one, which is very good. But then we saw with the satisfaction maybe a little bit more of students floating in that neutral or not sure I'm satisfied with the activities available. So just an example of something that came up. Areas that we saw for improvement were more folks in that sort of neutral to maybe dissatisfied bucket with career readiness and emotional mental health support for students. So this is a little small, but was also really critical. We gave everyone who took the survey a bucket of aspects of the school. So student academic achievement, teacher quality, athletics, all these different aspects of what Triton wants to do well. And we asked folks, what should be the top priorities for Triton for the next 5 years? Pick 3. So blue is what students chose, gold is staff, gray is community, and you can see we had 2 very clear winners there for things that people wanted the school to focus on. Those were academic achievement and teacher quality. Not far behind were social emotional well-being, which was actually a really high priority for the staff, if you kind of notice the difference there. And then safety for the students, which we interpreted those as somewhat similar priorities. The kind of culmination of the current state report was a summary in a SWOT analysis. So Jeremy Prince, the fellow who worked on this, and I worked together to gather all the key themes that we were seeing into this, and then we brought it to the first workshop for the participants to look at after we showed them the current state report. And we asked, what did we miss? what did we get wrong? What is right in this? This is their edited version. So this is also available in the strategic plan because it was critical to the process. And I won't spend a lot of time on it since you can read later, but just want you to be aware of this element toward the work. Okay, I've been alluding to the workshops, but we'll talk a little bit about that. First, I do want to explain the approach we took. There's a lot of different ways you can do strategic planning. Our approach was a cascading plan. So that means we started from the top and we planned very broadly, where do we want to be in 5 years? That was our strategic direction, a statement that could be our North Star and guide us through the process. Then we went deeper and we said, okay, based on that strategic direction, what do we want to do over 5 years to get there? Those are our strategies. And then finally, we decided, okay, we need to get one level deeper. What do we want to do on an annual basis? Those are the objectives under each strategy. So you kind of have a 5-year level, and then what are we going to do in this first year? And then as the years proceed, are the objectives. So we had 3 workshops. We tackled each element of the graph I just showed you one at a time. In the first workshop, we spent a good amount of time on the report, talking about the data, asking questions. And then we facilitated agreement around a strategic direction statement and started talking about 5-year strategies. In the second workshop, we really focused on the strategic measures. How will we tell if we meet our strategies? And then got started on objectives. And then in the final workshop, we finalized our objectives, and we started talking about how will Triton implement this. What was key to that was assigning leads. So who in the Triton team can take the lead on each objective to make sure it gets done. The names listed here is everyone who participated. So these folks gave a lot of their time and a lot of their expertise to the process and were really integral to it. And a special thanks to Terry and Wes as well for the time that they contributed. Okay, so without further ado, this is a summary of the results. There's more detail in the plan, but I will briefly read the strategic direction. Triton School Corporation will be the school of choice by providing a high-quality education in a safe and supportive working and learning environment. We will cultivate well-rounded, college and career-ready students who will positively impact the community. What does that mean? In 5 years, we want to do the following things: encourage student academic success, foster social and emotional support, and invest in teacher and staff success. I'll show the objectives one at a time, and again, very summarized, but under student academic success this year, the group decided we should evaluate vertical alignment of curriculum. We should implement an analysis process at the junior, senior high level, looking at the data similar to what's currently done at the elementary level. We should plan elementary math interventions, identify those, what should be done. And then finally, keep expanding those CTE and internship opportunities for students at the high school level. Sorry, I've got a little slow clicker. There. Oh, I guess I was just impatient. We'll just stay here. So under foster social and emotional support, a major priority that came up was hiring an elementary guidance counselor. We heard this throughout from the focus groups, the interviews, the surveys that the staff were doing a lot of, or trying to fill that role a lot for students and wearing a lot of hats, and that this was an area that seemed like a need that a lot of folks were really excited about. Assessing student and staff well-being was key, and that was great because that is underway with the work with Panorama Survey and 4 County. Updating social emotional lessons for the junior high school was identified as a priority by the group, as well as auditing what electives and extracurriculars students are really interested in to get engagement up. And then finally, training staff in de-escalation practices that they can use to help the students. Those objectives for teacher and staff success include hiring a junior, senior high administrator, so echoing some of the themes I mentioned, staff needing that support at the high school level. This next was one that a lot of folks were really excited about, providing some structure and some regularity to the time that staff have set aside for professional development and collaboration. So creating a plan for how that can happen. Revising the staff onboarding process. So taking a look at how staff are brought onto Triton, what do they hear in those initial trainings, and how is the standard set. And then finally, creating a staff communication feedback loop to give staff and leadership more of a structured opportunity to talk to each other along the way about issues. This is what it looks like in the document. So each strategy has its own page with the measures, objectives, and leads. I'm not going to go through each of these. I just want to show you, as you're navigating it, kind of what each section means. So objectives are there on the left, what we're doing this year. These are the 5-year measures based on the data that we looked at and the goals that the group set. And then finally, we have leads identified for each objective, which is excellent, and below their names, a support team beneath them that can meet with them throughout the way and make sure that progress is being made. So that is all I have for you. I just want to say thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to work with this team. Everyone is so dedicated and wonderful to work with, and I hope that you've gotten as much out of this process as Jeremy and I have. What questions can I answer? Any comments that you'd like to share?
Question. Comments, thanks for doing this. I think it's well done. You've got a good vision for the next 5 years. Hopefully we can stay on board.
Thank you.
Having sat through probably 2 other strategic plan meetings like we do every so many years, this is by far the most in-depth, the most focused, the most solid that we've had in several years.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful to hear. I'm so glad.
I think it's super timely. I think coming out of a pandemic, it would have been really hard to do this last year when really we should have. In fact, I think we even questioned ourselves in June as we sat at the boathouse to say, is this even the right time? And I think maybe even in December we would have said, this may not be the right time. But in the end, as we come out and we talk about, we can actually be a little bit more proactive in our plan instead of reactive with everything. I think it's a really good time to have this document. But let's be honest, the real work begins now. Right, and I think we've already taken some steps, even through the process of seeing some of those needs. You mentioned Panorama. We mentioned our partnership with Fort County. We mentioned some of the conversations we've had just a year ago at this time of possibly hiring some other people to support, which I think is a really good time, and the finances allow that. So I'm super excited about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So. With that, if there's any other questions, I'd be glad to take those, or if Megan needs to answer some of those from a non-biased point of view. I do appreciate that. I think we're all so entrenched in the day-to-day that sometimes we do get defensive and we do get pretty biased to we think we're doing okay. And I think it really did help to have a team to expose some of those things, get a teacher perspective, get an administrative perspective, a counselor perspective, a parent perspective, a board member perspective, and so I appreciate everybody doing this. But with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or thoughts before I make a recommendation to approve this plan and move forward with its actions. Any questions? Anything to add, Mr. McCann or Mrs. Cook?
No, I'll just say that I think it was a really good process, and I enjoyed going through it. I think it was well organized and well done.
I also appreciated the data gathering that they did in advance of us, that we didn't have to do. Like you said, it's nice to have somebody else objective and then do the work of sorting through all that, the interviews, the surveys, and then say, this is what the survey said.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was helpful for us to see that.
Yeah.
It allows us to sit back a little bit more and say, okay.
I think especially, and there were a couple meetings that Megan and Jeremy had to work with me through meltdowns, but in the end it was nice going through what we were going through during the time that we didn't have to add one more burden. So it was very light on our end, but yet still very informative and extremely helpful. So I appreciate that, because man, there were times when we were looking at spreadsheets of COVID fund, and I was not focused on a strategic plan, but they were. And so we met just about every Thursday there for a little while just to make sure we were all on the same page. And great job, great job. So without further ado, I'd like to recommend the 2022-2027 strategic plan moving forward.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kevin, seconded by Wes.
We tied.
Okay, I heard lots of noises.
I'll take it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Yeah, I've looked at it, looks great.
Yeah, great job.
Motion passes 5-0.
Now the hard part is.
Do what?
Hard part is.
Yeah. So the questions may ask, posting for counselor and athletic director will begin this week. We just wanted to make sure that we went through the proper steps. As I said, Megan did present to the elementary staff on Tuesday, presented to the high school staff on Tuesday, elementary staff on Thursday. I presented to the bus drivers this morning to just make sure that they understood kind of what we're trying to accomplish with the kids that they're getting on those buses and each morning. And we will start the process and continue to work really, really hard to get these things accomplished year one and then continue to plan.
All right. Are there any patrons' comments this evening? No? All right, we will move on to the building reports. Whoever would like to go first.
I think the last time that we met, we had just finished taking iRead, and so we were awaiting our scores. So our third graders have all taken that. And we came back with about 85% of our students passing the first time around. We have about 9 students who are super close to the passing mark, and they will get a second chance to retake that at the end of our summer school. So we've been in contact. I've been in contact with all parents regarding that. So we do have some of them, and I'm very confident and hopeful many of them will be passing again. Will be passing it the second time around. So that will be the last weekend of our June summer school. Last week also we had DARE graduation, and that was the first time in 2 years that we've had a class who has completed it and gone all the way up to graduation. So that was really exciting. I'd like to thank Officer Amsden and the 5th grade teachers for keeping that a priority and making sure that that happens. That started back in December. The important lessons for our kids to take with them, and we had a pretty good turnout of parents as well who attended that graduation. We also started last week our Lunch Bunch groups. That is partnering with 4 County. Again, our goal is to try and help those students who the 2 target areas are emotional regulation and self-management. And we have groups of kids from each grade level who are meeting once a week during their lunch and recess with Morgan Belcher, who is a skills trainer with 4 County. So working on those skills, and it will be once a week through the end of the school year. So we're excited about that as well. This week we have 6th grade heading to BizTown tomorrow to operate their businesses, see what it's like to be part of a community there, put their skills into practice. I'd like to really thank all the 6th grade teachers, but specifically Ms. Hannah Snyder. This is her first year coordinating that event and teaching the social studies, and I think it's been a good thing for her, but it's always something you're really nervous about, that culminating event. So I appreciate her efforts in particularly on this. And then, of course, all the people who are going along to help. Grade 3 will be going on Thursday, visiting Fair Oaks, once again, Dairy. And next Wednesday, we also have preschool enrollment night from 4 to 6. So we already have about half of our applicants already, half of our spots filled with previous applicants, but we'll look and see what that looks like for next year. I guess I forgot to say last week we had kindergarten roundup. We had about 40 enrollees. That doesn't include maybe all of our preschoolers that we know are coming, but quite a few of them. So we were happy with that. We expect that number to increase as well as we go on through May, June, and July, and by the time we gather all of our kindergartners. We are continuing with summer school planning, as Mr. Riffle mentioned, with the staff. We have a staff in place, and we'll be preparing for that and inviting students as well in grades a pre-K, kindergarten, countdown to kindergarten, as well as kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And then I Learn starts on Monday. Everyone's looking forward to that.
Okay, some updates for the junior senior high school. So last week we had a reality day for our 8th and 12th graders, and they worked with members of Lake City Bank, and Shannon Hepler helped us put that together. So these students came down and they were given, I guess, real life scenarios. This is your job with this salary, and you have this many kids, and you have to buy a car, and they just kind of had to work through that. And I think they got to see just some of the real world situations that you find yourself in once you get out of school or college or what have it. So that was a really good experience for our students. We are looking to next year to do something very similar with Lake City Bank, who did a great job. But we're also looking to do something or add to it through Purdue with some other grade levels. So just to kind of mix it up for our students every year. We have the English portion of iLearn scheduled to start April 19th. That'll run through the 26th. And then we'll have the next wave in May for math. April 20th, we have a math competition. We're going to host that here at Triton. That's through our athletic conference. So those schools in our math or in our athletic conference, they're bringing teams for their from their math department, and they're going to compete in various levels here at the high school. That's our first time hosting that, so that'll be exciting. Let's see here. Senior trip. If you haven't heard that already, the senior trip was originally on April 26th through the 28th. That has now been changed to April 29th through May 1st, so which is in some ways probably a better scenario being on the weekend, but it did cause some conflicts with families that were originally planning to go, and the company just came to us and needed us to change that date, so we worked with them, we communicated with families, and made the best out of it. So one of those conflicts kind of falls into the next topic here, our CTE internship recognition banquet. We're looking to have that on April 29th, that night. There's 3 students that were going on the senior trip that were also supposed to come to that banquet that are no longer going to be able to do that, but invitations have already gone out. A lot of planning's been in place, and we just need to move forward. So, but the 29th, again, the CTE internship recognition, and we're not trying to take away the importance of going to college and getting that education, but we also want to reinforce the positives at the high school level of getting involved in some sort of a career and technical education program, and getting exposure in our community and communities around us about the different career opportunities that are around here. And we're trying to make a lot of those connections, and we've increased that this year, and that's why we're putting on this program, and we're seeing that even grow more for next year, and we want to continue to do these programs moving forward, just to recognize those kids, but also recognize the employers and the instructors at those different programs and what they're giving back to our kids. So that'll take place April 29th. Let's see here, Saturday, April 30th at 7 p.m. and Sunday, May 1st at 3 p.m. We are going to have the production of Alice in Wonderland take place here at Triton Junior Senior High School. So we're just hoping we have a good turnout for that. So come out and enjoy that show. Support Samantha Phoenix, elementary teacher. This is her first year as our director. And so support her and the many students involved in that, please. A little update on scheduling. So at this point, all students are scheduled, and we have been building a master schedule for next year. What we're doing right now is we're kind of balancing sections, so you don't have one section with a lot of kids and another section with a low number, and that can sometimes be very tricky, so we're working through that the best we can right now. It's our goal, beginning of May, to tell teachers tentatively, here's what you're teaching next year, but also to hand every school or every student their schedule for next school year. And hopefully just giving the students a little bit of time to take that home with their parents, to look it over. Maybe we can have a lot of the schedule changes ironed out before we even go into the summer. That way we can start next year just off and running. So May 17th, 18th, and 19th, we're going to do 6th grade tours. So those students that are coming over next year as 7th graders, we're going to be showing the building, just kind of going through the ins and out of how it works. And our senior squad is going to lead those tours. And the last thing here, just something to kind of put on your radar as we start talking about handbook changes. That's something that we have a committee for every year, and we bring to the school board to get adopted for the next year. There's going to be some changes to that handbook, but one that I guess I want on your radar is something that was adopted 2 years ago before my coming on board, was to increase the graduation requirements credits for, it would actually be for our current junior class. So a student that's pursuing a general diploma or a Core 40 diploma would, instead of needing 42 credits, would now need 48 credits. A student that's on our academic honors diploma would need 48 credits, but now need 52 credits. So there were a variety of reasons probably for doing that. One, just to have high expectations, which is great. We still need to do that. We need to have those for our students. I think there were some decisions made based on, students that get into their senior year. Many of them have those 48 or 42 credits already accomplished, so they're taking classes that they may not necessarily need, so they may not be taking them seriously. And so I think there's a variety of reasons for that change. I'm wondering right now, just based on the things that we've experienced over the last few years, knowing that the struggle that some of our students are having, is if right now is the time to adopt something like that or to carry out that right now. So we're doing some research right now, me and the counselors. We're taking a look at, see what other school corporations are doing, and we're going to take a look and just see what is in the best interest of our kids. And as we go through that handbook process, bringing to you guys a recommendation on what we just feel is best for our kids. So just have that on your radar. If you have questions about that, let me know. I'll do my best to answer those questions. So that's all I have, unless you guys have some questions for me.
I do have one other item. Do you have any questions? Good. All right. One other item I do want to bring it to your attention. We had the opportunity to meet. Tom and I met with Barton Cove Vilma last Thursday. And just continue to talk a little bit about the upcoming bond. I've sat right here for the last 3 years and said my hope and dream is to look at secure entrances and what does that look like within our buildings. And I don't think it's ever the wrong time to do the right thing. And so we're continuing to look at that. I shared with the board last week scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, and quite frankly, with building materials the way they are right now, some of the expectations when it comes to per square foot cost, we're reassessing that. In our conversations with Dana, he sat right here in this seat and just said, Jeremy, I want you to understand that you guys have secure entrances. You just want to make them more secure. And that kind of put me at ease to be able to have other conversations on what might be the best use of those funds as we move forward with that bond, hoping to, once again, as we have in the past, keep that tax neutral. We've taken a lot of pride in the fact is that we're not trying to burden our community, especially in the times of inflation and that type of thing. So we'll continue. We'll come with a recommendation next board meeting to make sure that we're staying on pace with that bond. But things we are looking at is the possibility of redoing some of the electrical, whether that's outlet or boxes or even wiring at the high school. If you remember when we were building the TAC, there was a screw that was screwed into one of the wires and the box did not trip, right? Because they're older and just in need of repair. So looking at that, looking at the auditorium, how can we update the auditorium, whether that's aesthetics or whether that's sound and lighting to make that a little bit more user-friendly. And we have 2 people that have seen that in use with junior Misc and those type of things. And just how can we make that a little bit easier to use and or update that? The other piece, Tom, help me remember, we are looking at ADA compliance situations. So one of those is looking at the bleachers in the trench. Is that necessary right now with some of the happenings that happen during basketball seasons with some falls and stuff like that? Is that necessary at this time? And then there's one other that I'm high school office area. With the conversations of secure entrances, we were looking at possibly changing the office area, which is why the cost was high, because we were essentially going to add a front office to the front, knowing that we would still love to do the secure entrance at the elementary, and also knowing that that's just not as big of a project. But the high school front entrance, of bringing that out towards the front so you actually had to walk through that office, which is what we found is going to cost a lot more than maybe we first expected. So possibly revamping the front office to make that a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit safer, but also keeping in mind our strategic plan of some of the possibilities of adding staff in the front office and where that person may land and how they could be accessible to the counselors in the front office. So rearranging some of those things, which was just a conversation that we started on Thursday. So I just wanted to make you aware of that those conversations are being had based on some of the assessments that we're getting from Bart & Co. and the engineers, knowing what prices are right now and just, is this the best time to put all of our money into that? I think we really need to assess that, right? So that being said, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page on that. We'll continue to share out on some of those items. But
I got two things. I'd like to remind the community that the Triton FFA online-only auction is underway, and early bidding looks really good. Bidding does start to close this Wednesday starting at 6 p.m., and you can get all the details at the website www.tritonffa.club. And if you aren't comfortable bidding online, you can place a paper bid at Bates Corporation, and the items can be viewed Tuesday and Wednesday from 9 to 5 at Bates Corporation. And one last thing, we got a late comment. Mr. Rolfe says, "What's up, Triton? My daughter and I have watched so many of your girls' basketball games when they pop up in our feed. Go Trojans from Fredericksburg, Virginia."
That's awesome. That's awesome. I had a parent actually this week talk to me about a fan club in Ohio as well, Orion. I know we had a young lady from Oregon, right, last year that we sent a little care package to, and I think it's just a tribute to a lot of the things and a lot of time and effort that's put into just a stellar service that we provide our community and our nation, our world, right?
We certainly set the standard in this community.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's pretty awesome.
I will just say this, I know that I attend churches of people that sit down in front of a 65-inch TV every night. There's a boys' basketball game at least.
Yeah.
It's a grandpa, but it's not like this grandpa watches. It's like the whole community comes over.
Yeah.
And watches the basketball game. They have a social hour.
I happen to have a father-in-law that does the same thing in Florida, and that's really his only excuse to his granddaughter that he can't come to basketball games. So I would encourage those that sit in Florida and or at home on a cold winter night to continue to keep us in mind when thinking about the fact is that everybody that stays home is one less gate that we have, and a lot of that goes to support the ongoing efforts of Orion and the TTSN team. So I would just, if it's blessed you, I think oftentimes when things bless us, we're more likely to give to those things, and I think that has been a blessing for our community. It is not often that you have junior hires, and I'm just speaking for my home, that says, well, where's our game at? Where's our game on YouTube tonight? Like that, they take that for granted, unfortunately, but it's pretty awesome that our 6th graders and 5th graders can come home and watch some tape and see how they can continue to improve. So that is awesome.
I'd also like I also would like to thank Bates Corp. Been out there, the effort that they put into that, Terry, you're a part of that. And their company is just phenomenal. So I just want to say thank you. Great reception on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
13 dozen
that was
donuts.
great. 13 dozen donuts, coffee. With the snow, it actually was still pleasant to be there. You need a donut and drink your coffee. But so just want to say thanks to Bates Corp publicly and the people that are involved with that, helping out our FFA.
When I visited the week before the auction, when people were already starting to show up, Brian Kitch was very quick to say, without Steve Feldman,
Yes.
It would be extremely hard to go off, and so I do want to thank him personally for his effort and his passion for FFA and our kids.
Yep.
And then, of course, housing that. So I want to echo that as well.
April
So
Weaver and our ag teacher and the kids have been really, really good this year.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Wonderful.
There's no other business. We will adjourn at 7:55.